Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the workshop. My name is Ryan, and in today's video, I'm going to take you through the step-by-step process of how I make these large wooden flags. Now, one of the reasons I'm really excited to share this project with you is this customer went ahead and contacted me through social media, and she's surprising her boyfriend with this flag as a gift. He's obviously a first responder and works for a fire department, and me being former law enforcement myself, I really love giving back and making these products for all of our friends and family members that are out there putting their life on the line for us every single day. Now, real quickly, why I've got my stock down here on the table, let's go ahead and address a couple questions that I get periodically, and that is, where do I get my material and what material do I use? Now, typically when making a large flag, this one's gonna be 18 by 35 inches. This is a 20-inch by 36-inch blank. It is a spruce pine, and you can find this at most of your local big box stores. But if you don't have this available to you in the region you're in, don't freak out. This is still just your basic 1x pine. So you can go buy a couple 1x6 boards and you can glue those up and make your blank or panel whatever size you need. Word to the wise though, when you're buying these panels, even if you're buying a pre-glued up one, check the edges to make sure the seams aren't falling apart. You're also going to want to try to find uniform colored pine. You will notice like yellow pine and white pine, that's going to stain up differently and give you some problems. So if it's possible, try to find the pine that looks similar. It's just going to look much better when you stain it. I always never cut this corner. Whenever I'm working with pine, I always apply some of this Minwax pre-stain. That's going to always give me better results. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, here's a pro tip that will save you a lot of money and frustration. Do not be a Neanderthal like me. If you're going to stain your sign blank, every manufacturer has a section called directions. Who would have thought, right? However, those directions will tell you what grit sandpaper you should finish your sign blank prior to using that particular make and model of stain. Every manufacturer has a different set of instructions, and I have learned this the hard way. For this project, you can see I'm using a Minwax semi-transparent black, and I can't state this enough. Every time you work on a new project, you will have to use your own good common sense. Sometimes the stain stays really wet, and I have time to wipe off the excess. Other times you will notice the stain is starting to dry out and get sticky. That's your sign to immediately get that excess wiped off before it dries on the sign panel. And while I'm at it, another thing I should mention is there's no right or wrong way to stain your sign blank. It's totally up to you or your customer how you would like it to look. So relax, take a deep breath, and enjoy the process. Now that we have the sign blank ready for the CNC machine, we need to attach it to the spoil board. Today, I'm going to be using what's known as a composite brad nailer. I never even knew these existed until I got my CNC machine. This one's manufactured by a company called ORTUR. It's from Italy, and yes, it's expensive, but guys, when you're running a business, time is money, especially when it comes to CNC machining. I will, once the machine gets running, cover why the ORTUR composite brad nailer is something you might want to look into. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about my machine and what type of CNC machine you might want to pick up while the machine's running. In the meantime, let's get this secured down to the spoil board. And like always, there are many different ways to skin a cat. Feel free to drop a comment below and let me know how you do this step in the process. As you guys saw earlier, this is a thin red line flag for the client. Therefore, I need to paint a red line. Personally, for me and my workflow, I use an Auramask 813 spray mask. I always make sure the stain or paint is completely dry before I apply this material, and you always want to make sure you're using a extremely sharp end mill when cutting into this material. If you follow those steps, you will get a nice, clean, crisp line. You'll recall that this was an oversized panel, and this is one of the reasons why I really love that composite nail gun. It allows me to shoot in my brad nails on the perimeter of the sign blank. Then I can come in with a 1/4-inch bit, do my final profile, and I can go ahead and edit and use the tab function in my Vectric V-Carve. And I just like to use a small chisel and a little mallet, and you're just gonna pop it right here. I run 4 of them on the bottom, and and I run 4 of them up here on the top. So let's go ahead and break this loose really quick. And that's how easy it is to remove your sign blank. Now, one question I get all the time is, what do I do with the leftover pieces of wood that are stuck into the spoil board with those composite brad nails? Here's the beauty of those composite brad nails. Take a little mallet, break them loose. It's as simple as that. Now let's go ahead and get that sign blank prepped for paint.
And again, for this part of the process, there's no right or wrong way to do it. The only way to do it is the way you like it or the way your customer wants it. Me personally, I like to use an 1/8 inch roundover in a palm router and just take off that sharp edge. If you don't have a palm router or a roundover bit, you can always just use a sanding block to knock down that sharp edge. You can always put a chamfer on the edge as well. Heck, if you want to get fancy, you can even frame it out. And last but not least, don't be a dumbass like me. Always make sure you catch those edges with stain before moving on.
Now there's many different ways that you could paint that red stripe. A lot of people like to use some inexpensive acrylic paint and a brush, and they go ahead and sit there and paint that red line in. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm sure the mass majority of people just use a basic spray can. I personally like to just use a spray can for something simple like this. But here's the trick that I like to use. I like to seal my wood with a little bit of shellac beforehand. This is a clear coat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this all taped off. I'm going to spray down a coat of shellac, and what I really like about the shellac is it does coat the wood so that when you come back in and put your paint over the top of the shellac, the wood does not just continue to absorb that wet liquid paint. It's going to adhere to the shellac, and it's going to dry much quicker, and it's going to give you a nice smooth finish. So let's go ahead and get this taped up, and I'll show you how that process works.
Time for another pro tip that will yet again save you time and money. Have I dropped enough pro tips for you to drop a like on this video for me? If you did not have access to or apply a spray mask earlier in the process, now is where you don't want to cheap out. I'm using 3M painter's tape because I have a mask down. If I did not have a mask, you would see me utilize frog tape. The frog tape is well worth the money, and at this point in the game, you do not want to destroy this sign. You have too much time, money, and energy invested into it. You'll also notice when I started painting the red stripe, I focused my spray pattern on the edges first. Then I came back in and did a light coat, which we call a tack coat. The fastest way to screw your sign up at this point is to get the spray nozzle way too close to the sign blank.
Well, I don't know about you guys following along at home, but I am super excited with how this flag is turning out. I can't wait to finish this thing up and get it shipped out to my customer. But while I have your attention, I do want to go over a couple different things that I do to my flags that will separate my product from the competition out there. And as I talked about a little bit earlier in the video, and I don't want to bore you with it, wood naturally has a lot of moisture content in it, and if you don't source the right wood, these things can really start to bow and buckle and twist and look like a potato chip sitting up there on that wall. We don't want that to happen, and I will do a detailed video on how to glue up your own panels and prevent that kind of warpage. That's for another video, but you guys already know I started out with a pretty nice sign blank, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the process that I take to ensure that the sign will mount up on the wall easily and will look extremely nice and will not bow out from the wall.
One of my favorite tools to use in the workshop is this Craig multi-measuring device. If you want to know exactly what this item is, I will have a link to my Amazon store in the description below. Once I have the layout complete, I apply a small amount of tight bond wood glue and attach the vertical uprights using an 1¼ 23 gauge pin nailer. The pin nails will simply hold the vertical uprights in place while the glue sets. I stick with a basic mounting hardware. This is a sawtooth style hanger. Almost everybody knows how to install one of these, and they're very easy to get your sign level.
So there you have it. You always want to be paying attention to the small details. I've seen a lot of other flag or sign makers sell a product and they don't include any hanging hardware, and that's fine, and their justification is they're going to let their consumer or customer pick what kind of hanging hardware they want. I don't have an issue with that, but at the end of the day, it sucks when you get a sign, you're all excited and you want to hang it up, and you don't have any hardware. So at the end of the day, that's why I personally go ahead and spend the money and I install these basic sawtooth hangers. If somebody doesn't want to use the sawtooth hangers, they just go in with these little small Phillips screws. Somebody could take those out and put something else on there. You could put a nice hidden French cleat if you want. You could put D-rings if you want. You can use the hanging wire. One of the things that I like about this method, when you put these vertical 3/4 inch uprights, it's going to keep that sign blank from cupping and bowing and looking like those Pringles chips we were talking about. Number two, it's going to allow that sign to sit about 3/4 of an inch off of the wall, nice and flat, and it's going to create a nice drop shadow effect. So all we have left to do is spray our clear coat on here. So I'm going to walk you through the process of that. We're going to get this thing finished up and we're going to ship it out to our customer. Now that we've given the red paint an entire day to dry, now comes the very challenging part of sealing this sign. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of questions out there when it comes to what's the proper polyurethane. Your general rule of thumb is going to be very simple. If the sign is going to be outdoors, you need an exterior type of protection. If the sign is going to hang indoors, you can go ahead and utilize an interior polyurethane. They make a water-based poly and they make a oil-based poly. They also make an interior poly, they make an exterior poly, and they make an interior/exterior. I can do an entire video on polyurethane, but for today's purposes, I'm only doing this one sign, so your spray cans will work perfectly fine. It's when you start doing a large volume, you want to break out your air sprayer and spray those signs down. So here's the biggest difference between interior and exterior. Anytime you spray something exterior, they're going to add in a UV additive. That UV additive obviously blocks UV rays from the sun. The downside is anytime you spray it on a material that's light like this or something that's white, you are going to see that poly turn it yellow. I've seen countless posts where people have a product that they were so proud of, they went to finally finish it and they put an exterior oil-based poly on the sign and it turned yellow, and they were completely devastated with those results. So just know it's a double-edged sword. Yes, you get the protection. The downside is it's going to turn your sign blank a little more yellow, especially the lighter or white colors. The downside is the oil-based also takes a lot longer to dry. Now they do make an oil-based polyurethane that's interior, and I use this quite often, and I'm really happy with the results, and it is minimal yellowing. So if you want to avoid the yellowing and you're going to hang your sign interior, I would recommend you look for a water-based paint. And then as far as the finish goes, gloss, semi-gloss, satin, completely up to you and the look you're trying to get on your finished product. For this one here today, we are going to be using the Minwax polyurethane, and this is a clear satin, and I really love the look of a satin finish on these flags. Ladies and gentlemen, that is unfortunately going to bring us to the end of this video, but I'm curious, please drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of the sign. How did it turn out? Also, if you guys love this type of content and you want to help support me, I've got some affiliate links below. You guys can go look at all the exact same products that I use in my videos. If you buy through Amazon, it's the exact same price. It simply gives me a small kickback, which helps out my channel so I can keep creating more content for you guys. I'm sure a lot of you wanted to know what kind of CNC machine I have. I'm sure you want to know how I created the tool paths and what kind of tool bits I'm using. So if you guys have questions about that, drop a comment below. If you guys have ideas for other type of content that you would like me to create, again guys, I only know what to make if you participate and drop a comment below. And if anything, if you got some value or some entertainment out of the video, the best thing you can do to help me out, again, is just give me a thumbs up. And always feel free to subscribe and hit the notification, all that jazz. Thanks for staying with me through the entire video. If you've made it this far, you have more patience than me. And as always, we're going to catch you on the next one.